Well, I snuck into a secret Project Motor Racing developer race, and as a content creator, obviously I needed to beat them. And this video is going to teach you a lot about Project Motor Racing and actually driving on the limit. It might seem a little bit harsh, but sometimes content on YouTube and sim racing is not always people driving at the limit, and that's absolutely fine, but sometimes you just need to see at the limit driving. So anyone you see here with an S4S username is from Straightforward Studios. This is a developer that has developed Project Motor Racing. This is not a paid video, they didn't even know what's going to be in this lobby. I literally snuck in, and this is in the custom race in Project Motor Racing at Zolder in this classic Porsche car. Now I want to start here with what I think is a big issue that I'm surprised hasn't been addressed already, which is that in Project Motor Racing you can't join a session that's in practice. You have to join a lobby before it starts practice. Having run a lot of leagues myself, pretty big leagues with the likes of Super GT, etc., I don't think that's going to fly. I just don't understand how I'm meant to get everyone in a session before practice. The idea is we all live in the real world, we come back from work, we're joining a session and we just need to be in before qualifying starts. But Project Motor Racing doesn't work like that, which I find very unusual. This is Zolder. I've just done a 23-hour race at Zolder in iRacing in Jimmy Broadbent's charity race, where we raised over £50,000 of charity, which is incredible. And it's very different in Project Motor Racing. This is why I'm saying I don't think Project Motor Racing is a huge competitor for iRacing. I think if you're a hardcore iRacing fan, you're probably just not going to enjoy Project Motor Racing that much, because Project Motor Racing, in my opinion, is a lot more forgiving when it comes to riding curbs, when it comes to getting on the throttle. This is a car that doesn't have traction control or ABS, but it's still quite easy to drive, I would say, in a nice way. The force feedback actually feels a little bit dampened. And you can see I'm respecting track limits here. I'm respecting them the same way as I would in iRacing, but as you're going to see in the race, you can actually get away with a lot more. So we go over here, we're provisionally pole, which is great, but we're going to start the race. Okay, so for the race, we're going to look at contact, we're going to look at track limits, we're going to look at driving style, trail braking, tyre temperatures, hopefully everything you want to know about. So hit the subscribe button now if you're not already subscribed. We go off the line here, again, not a lot of wheel spin. I'm going to do a cheeky move up the inside that I definitely would not do in iRacing. Again, it feels like the consequences in iRacing would be very severe, but here, not that severe. So a little bit of door banging. Difficult to say whether I had a wheel at the rear axle over by the apex, but hopefully with a radar it'll be easier to go side by side, but there's no radar at the moment, so we slot into P2 here. Now the driver ahead of us, again, we're going to look at the driving styles, because some things are quite unusual. I would say the driver ahead, Just Boris, it might have been his lobby, by the way, so go check out Just Boris. It has a bit more of an aggressive driving style to me, or at least that's how it looked from my perspective. So much more aggressive in rotating the car, whereas I'm trying to be quite gentle rotating the car. Now you can see track limits there. I thought I'd just follow Just Boris. I thought there we just maybe got a wheel on the red and white curb. But as you're going to see at Zolder, I think you can be extremely aggressive with track limits. Some people are going to like that, some people aren't. A little bit of a lock up there from Boris, and again we're really sort of playing aggressive with the track limits, but nothing silly as of yet. In iRacing, very difficult to spin the car here because there's just so much camber going on. You have so much lock on the wheel because you just have to be flat. Coming into the hairpin, like iRacing, easy to lock up, which is good. And as you come out of the lockup, you often get quite a bit of rotation. Looking at the tyre temperatures, we're still not up to speed, and we're settling into a nice race here in P2. You can see all of the Straightforward Studios developers behind us. Pretty cool to race the developers because, you know, I do this sim racing channel. We've got 120,000 subscribers. It's quite big. I do this in my spare time, so this is my full-time job. It's just a hobby, but I do a lot of time sim racing. They've spent the last few years of their life developing the sim, so it's pretty cool for us all to come together. And if we can beat them, nice bit of trailing there. If we can beat them, then I think it's legitimate in terms of the advice that we can give the developers. So you see there, Just Boris, a huge amount of rotation. I would expect more of a penalty in traction if you're going to rotate the car like that, but you can see that hasn't happened. Coming into turn 3, I think it's turn 4 as Zolder. again, we'll see in this race, you can have a lot of rotation there, sometimes getting punished, sometimes not. We'll take a look at it. The chicane here, in iRacing, if you're in a touring car, you can smash it. The car that I was driving, the Cadillac, you couldn't even touch the right-hand side, because when the wheels came down after you launching it, you would basically spin out. Now, whether that's realistic or not, I don't know, because when I've driven cars in real life, like the 488 GT, when I raced the Mazdas, I wasn't smashing any over big chicanes there in Spain. So I just don't know really what it's like to smash chicane. When I've been driving the supercars at Silverstone on the international circuit, I've been getting really in the curbs, but again, they're not big curbs. So that Zolder chicane is a big curb, and I actually don't know what's more realistic, what we're doing in the Porsche or what was happening in iRacing. I'll have to go somewhere and smash some big curbs like that, not in a kart, because in the kart it's completely different. You can smash whatever you want. So coming in here, you can see a lot of the tyre rubber comes off. I really like it. I hope they don't nerf that. I think it's a cool feature. There's a few little cool dynamic features in Project Motor Racing. One of them is the vibration of the windscreen wipers. It's a very small touch, but I like it. And another is that rubber coming off the tyres. Now, turn 1 is such a trail-breaking corner at Zolder. And again, you can see a lock-up of the car ahead, but it doesn't seem to penalise them in terms of traction that much. And I'm happy to say that I can trail brake in Project Motor Racing, which is absolutely great. Have a look here at my brake trace. Brake comes up, turning, brake down. So we're doing a little bit of trailing into the corner. And you can see again the rubber coming off. I really like it. It's a cool touch. And we're half a second behind. This is where we're going to start to see track limits come into effect though. Because I'm trying to, I guess, respect track limits a bit. But ultimately my view in racing is you should abuse track limits to the hard-coded maximum. You know, when I go racing in real life in karting, sometimes the stewards or the clerk of the course will say you can't use all of the curbs. Sometimes I'll say, yeah, use all of the curbs. Like I've raced in championships where it's different week to week. And whatever the rules are, you have to exploit them. And even if the rules say you can't use the curbs, if you've got 3 uses before you get the black flag, I'm going to use it twice. That's just how I operate in racing. So it's good to race behind this Just Boris guy because he seemed to know the track limits of Zolder a little bit better than me. In terms of the tyres, we want to keep an eye on the left rear tyre here at Zolder. It gets an absolute punishing. It's a really brutal circuit on the left rear because you have these really long right-hander corners where you just want that left rear to dig in, give you the traction. So we're just a second behind now on Just Boris, but look at the trailing into turn 1 as well. You know, lot of trailing there. Because you just want to rotate that car and get on the power. And as Just Boris is getting a bit ahead of us, again, a puff of smoke from Just Boris and a different line. And I felt like my line should be better, but my line isn't working as well as Just Boris through turn 2. It's clear to see. And again, in turn 4, I just really want to keep the car nicely settled. I don't want to over-rotate the car. For me, intrinsically, that's the best way to maintain traction. But it looks like in Project Motor Racing, maybe you can kind of over-rotate. Maybe you can actually abuse the car a bit more than I would in other sims. And I should have noticed there that track limit from Just Boris, sorry, that corner chicane, the way to chicane, wasn't a track limit. And really, I should be maximising that a lot more, but I've got this weird sense of I shouldn't do that. And you can see some more puffs of lockups going over the grass. And I'm definitely locked into a race here. It's a 12-person lobby. You can see all of the developers are picking up track limit warnings. So if you're watching this video when Project Motor Racing is out and you feel like the track limits are too strict, just write track limits in capitals in the comments because I'm sure the developers will see it. It's interesting how myself and Boris actually aren't getting track limits, but all the developers are. And it looks like there's a guy in P10 who might be on crossplay or a controller. I can't quite tell. And that left rear has crept up to 81 degrees. Tends to be when you get over 100 degrees, you're in real trouble. And that's massively dependent on the, I think the ambient temperature and the track temperature. And I don't think it's that well explained. This is my one of my points of Project Motor Racing. I think it's a good thing that tyres are so prominent in the game in terms of actually how they affect your pace and your handling. However, I think the game needs to do a much better job of explaining it to players. I have a funny feeling that the developers might assume more knowledge of the average player than I think we have. I'm a pretty experienced sim racer. I still need explanations of how things work because I want to see how the developers are explaining it so I can understand how to exploit it. I don't think it should be something that you have to, let's say, ask ChatGPT or whatnot to do. Tooltips in the games would be fantastic, and I think they've got an engineer in the game here that voice chats to you. I think they should 100% let you know if your tyres are overheating, etc., because it's going to differ car to car and compound to compound. And also be great to understand what the car ahead's doing. This is the next frontier of sim racing. You're going to see a lot of product offerings. I might be working on some stuff myself, which is going to help you understand how you're driving to other cars around you, which is really exciting. I'm a bit concerned it may take away from the romance of racing. For me, that ultimate romance is just karting, where there's no deltas, there's no timing. I'm just there, like, feeling the distance with the drivers and trying to psychologically understand how they're driving. And you can see I'm applying this to Just Boris here. I'm thinking, okay, he's locking up a bit into the corners. He's being a bit more aggressive. That means I'm not locking up as much. That means I've got more to push. But also maybe I should double down on having a smooth style, because maybe that's going to pay dividends with my tyre temperatures. You can see a nice wide entry there. Just Boris is going to maintain the gap, even though we're also, I think, taking turn one decently. And very different lines here. Very different lines. You can, to me, it feels like Boris should be taking more of the tyres. And to be fair, we have gained half a second there. So that time we have gained half a second. And again, I'm trying not to over-rotate there, but look at the tyres now creeping closer to 100 degrees. And this is very interesting. By the way, I've worked with Formula E over the last few years, which has been absolutely fascinating, interviewing all of their drivers and teams, etc., and going around the world. They have an interesting dynamic where Formula E is all about energy, it's all about battery, which is why you have these peloton races that are like the Tour de France. The teams only get to know what energy the other teams are on is when it shows on the global TV broadcast, which is just like pretty much random. And I find that a really interesting dynamic, but I'd love to, I think it'd be a great conceit in racing, for example. This is an example. Maybe I have 3 opportunities during a race to press a button and see what the tyre temps are of the car ahead of me are, and I can only do it 3 times in a race. Something like that would be really, really, really interesting. Again, you're going away from the pure romance that I have in karting, where you just don't know. You know, in karting, you don't know. When you're doing arrive and drive like a couple hundred, you just don't know who's got the better car. As we get very lucky there, avoiding that lap car. It looks like pretty much everyone else has a penalty. That's cost us a little bit in this race. But ironically, the tyre temps have gone down a bit. Let's see how much it gets punished. So the left-hander not too bad, but keep an eye on the next 2 right-handers on that left rear tyre temp. So trying to hug it, heating it up to 92, 93 degrees. Staying at 92 degrees as we're still turning right here. And then I've got this line where I really try and groove it. Really try and groove it in there, leaning on that tyre though. 101 degrees. Remember, my background in sim racing, where I've raced really at the highest level, is GT Sport. So racing top split, daily racing, GT Sport and GT7. GT Sport was a very static game, very non-dynamic game. So you could absolutely abuse the tyres. The time of day would be static, the tyres would be static, the fuel would be static, the weight would be static. And that's gonna be a hallmark I have in my driving sometimes, where I'm just going to lean on the tyres a bit too much. And I'm excited to develop as a sim racer into not doing that. Even iRacing, because you don't really have that much live information on the tyres, there's not that much emphasis on really looking after your tyres, I would say. ACC drivers will be very tuned in to looking after their tyres. Now here's another thing to note. Back markers, they're not going to ghost here. Again, Project Motor Racing does some hardcore realism, I think, even when it is probably going to bite them in the face, because I think for league racing or custom lobbies where you don't have any, there's no inbuilt trust Let's say you set up a custom lobby and you open it up and then you've got 16 people. There's no pre-existing trust there. You kind of all purportedly have agreed to enter a race and play by the rules. But we know in real life that doesn't always happen, right? We live in the real world. You can have dirty drivers and stuff. You can have griefers. I don't live in some academic world where that's not a possibility. And for them, I think they're going to need to be ghosted, because even if that person's driven well all race, so they haven't accumulated penalty points, etc., all it's going to take for them is to do one grievance thing and take out the leader, and that has a massive consequence on the race. That has a massive effect on whether that leader is going to enjoy the game or not and come back to the game. You probably want your leaders to keep coming back to the game. So that's another thing I hope they can implement along with the practice sessions and the radar. You've got some genuine suggestions for Project Motor Racing here. I want sim racing to keep progressing. That's partly why I enjoy doing the channel so much, is I get to just voice my honest opinions on what I feel is good for sim racing. So with 6 minutes to go, you can see my left rear is cooked, but I also felt like his left was cooked as well. So 105 degrees. This reminded me of the recent Las Vegas Grand Prix, where it felt like George Russell's tyres were absolutely cooked at the end. And he almost got overtaken, if I remember. So by Charles Leclerc, I think it was. So 100 degrees in that rear left. The right front's very cold. You can see that it's got the inside, middle and outside. And definitely I can change something there with the camber. Again, I would like to have some assistance with that via in-game tooltips or the engineer to help explain to me what I should be doing with that camber. But to my eye, I can see that camber, I think, should be changed, and the toe in and out maybe as well. Maybe most importantly, that left rear. But the left rear does look to be inflated quite nicely, although it is now absolutely cooked to 120 degrees. I just wonder what it's going to be like if you do a full fuel tank race. I don't know whether it's going to match up, because this is I think it's been a 20-minute race, as now I'm just like, screw it, we're going to cut that chicane. If you don't get a penalty, then that's the track limits. I think if we've been doing that all race, I think we might be closer at this stage with the leader. But we'll still go for it. Locking up coming in here, and the tyres are not really cooling down that much. There'll be a bit of an opportunity after we go around the hairpin, but if we get them near 120 degrees again, it's going to be much easier to spin. And that's where Project Motor Racing seems to be, very tyre dependent. So for example, with the Le Mans hypercars, when you take them out of the pits, very, very, very easy to spin. Once you've lapped them a few laps, less likely to spin. Now I would say that when I went to Spa with the World Endurance Championship, and I saw the 6 or 8 hours there, I saw a Ferrari 499P, I think it was Collado or someone, drop it out of the pits because they didn't have tyre warmers on. And I think Brendan Hartley dropped the Toyota at Eau Rouge as well, doing the same thing. And it sparked a massive debate about tyre warmers in World Endurance Championship, because they said they weren't doing tyre warmers because it saved energy, and the teams were like, we'll just put some solar panels up, it doesn't take a lot of energy. But yeah, tyre temperatures are massive, whereas in a sim like iRacing, it tends to feel either the cars are difficult to drive or not difficult to drive. It's not to do with tyre temps. And like I said, in Gran Turismo it's not an arcade game, but to me it's simulating less so as to take away variables that might make for a less intense racing experience. Because you could say here that let's say hypothetically I'm losing time because I've cooked my tyres. I think there's various reasons why I'm losing time compared to leader. But let's say because I cooked my tyres, that means that we would be denied 17 minutes of wheel-to-wheel racing and racecraft. And do I do dummies? Do I go up the inside? Do I do cutbacks? Do I do block passes, etc.? So we're denied that racecraft because of the added variability of tyre temperatures. Whereas Gran Turismo traditionally online has been like, we'll just get rid of those variables so you can spend as much possible time racing. And I think it's helpful to have both experiences actually. I think it's great to have both on console. I know ACC's on console, but I just feel like ACC, because it came to the original consoles first, the old gen now, PS4 and Xbox One, and it was a bit of a nerfed experience, even though it's been good on Series X and PS5 for a long time. I just feel like it got a bad rep there. And the other massive own goal from ACC on console is the server system as well. And that makes me worried about ASETEK Evo, because I don't really understand what ASETEK Evo is doing with servers. Now, Project Motor Racing has a great opportunity with servers. But like I said, you've got to be able to open a server for it to be in practice and for people to join until you start either the qualifying or the race. That's how things work in the real world. And you see, now I'm really struggling with the car. So we're getting to the end of the race. Obviously, we want to beat the developers. So as long as we finish P2, we'll beat all the Project Motor Racing developers, which will be quite cool. Because we might be teaching them a little bit about how we're driving and what we like and don't like. And I'm sure they'll watch this video. So any thoughts you have on Project Motor Racing, any questions, put them in the comments right now. And I'm sure they'll see it. Now, I come in here, I'm pretty sure I have a bad time. Look at the lock and the car goes. Now, I am not disappointed by that. I think that's, understandable. I have a feeling that when I was at the Sim Racing Expo, I have to have a look back at the footage. But do you remember I drove a Porsche car and I really couldn't drive it? And there were some people in the comments like, oh, it looks like you've never sim raced before. We'll have a look here as we're beating all the developers. But I have a feeling that that might have been because the ambient temperatures were really hot, or the track temp was really hot, or maybe there was something with the setup that was just causing the tyres to be really hot. However, that does worry me for a couple of reasons. One, people might jump into combinations on launch day or when they buy the game and not have a good experience. And secondly, it could be ripe for exploits as well. Because there's all sort, if it's so tyre dependent, there'll be all sorts of stuff you can do with the setup. Or for example, in iRacing, I do a weekly sim racing show news program on this channel. I can't tell you how many iRacing exploits I've covered in that time, including driving on the grass. So you could drive on the grass to cool the tyres. Interestingly, my tyres seem a little bit cooler now, dare I say. We're back to where they were. I guess 973 here. And it's this right-hander we're really pushing it. So if you could have a different driving style through this right-hander, that would really help you out, where you're not punishing it as much. And again, we keep it under 100 degrees there. You can see, look at the penalty being wrapped up behind. I think I'm going to try and go super aggressive through the chicane this time around. We'll see if we get a penalty. No penalty there. We'll try and go aggressive through the second chicane as well at Zolder. Great little track there. Should be a great track in Gran Turismo, to be fair. It'd be a very different race, I think, 12 people in Gran Turismo. And you can see there we're going to get a first track limit. You've got to, like I said, you've got to explore the track limits to understand where the limits are. But you can basically shortcut those chicanes, which, dare I say, makes it a little bit of a different track. Our best lap so far is a 1:45 dead, and I'm sure we'll do lots of setup guides and tips guides in Project Motor Racing to help everyone basically have fun in the game. So we'll see. There's lots of other games at the moment. I need to do a whole other setup guides and tips and things for Gran Turismo 7 as well. It's been such a long time since I've done that. And we're going to go over the line here, and we are going to finish in P2, beating the developers in their lobby. And it's been really cool to play with them, because these are the guys and girls that have spent a long part of their life basically developing this game. And I was lucky to speak to a few of them in Germany. I think they're really passionate about their game. And I'll be understandably nervous because, a lot of people will be trashing the game. And for me, I'm just interested in being very honest about how I'm finding the game and what I like and what I don't like. So, hopefully that's been a very interesting video. This is on PC, by the way. It's all at 4K and everything. Just one, again, thank you. If you haven't already, please vote for me as Creator of the Year in the Autosport Awards, which is crazy. I'm nominated alongside Max Verstappen. And I'll see you in the next video.